doing that? It keeps popping out my chat. I don't know why. It keeps doing it. Okay. Hi, Yummy. Hi, Dragon's Celt. Get going today. Oh my god, why is my hair doing that? Alright. We'll start music. They're gonna be late today because of that guy. Good morning. Thank you, Dark Lord. Appreciate that. Mia. Newshound, yeah, most of it. There's a couple clips I want to play, but like I worry about playing them because of TikTok. That's a crazy raid name. That she ought to hate a perfect stranger. How in the world can the words that I said write me a letter saying that I better shut up and sing or my life will be over. New Blue Bra raid is crazy. I'm not ready to make nice. I'm not ready to back down. I'm still mad as hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. I'm still mad as hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to make it right. Probably wouldn't if I could. Oh my god, thank you. It's so cute. Let's make sure we're tapping that screen. Sounds good. They say Good morning, good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. I appreciate you guys being here today. Happy Thursday. We're getting closer to the end of the week, so that's great. We love that. Love that for us. So guys, over on TikTok. Why is my mic extra loud today? I don't know why. Hi, over here on TikTok, if you could tap that screen, please, I would appreciate it. We'd like to hit 50,000 likes before the top of the hour, but I've seen you guys, we hit 200,000 for the entire live yesterday. Let's see if we can get higher than that. Let's try to get to 300,000 today. I think that we can do it. I know you guys can do it. Don't make me talk down to you, but you also like it when I talk down to you, so I guess we'll see how frisky you're feeling today. If you could share the live out, that would be great. Repost it, add it to your story. Share it with 5 of your friends. That does help push us out onto the algorithm. Do your daily heart me if you have not done so. Guys, there should be a golden heart because you're following me. Duh. So there should be a golden heart up there. If you click that and do send your daily heart me, please do that. They absolutely gives you access to stickers in the chat. So you guys should be able to do that. Guys, you knocked out my little rose goal. So now we have the little chilies up there. Just keep trying to work those gift goals down. It does help with pushing us out on the algorithm. If you're watching over there on YouTube, if you could hit that thumbs up button for me, please, I would appreciate it so very much. Helps push us out over there on YouTube. Guys, don't forget, you can subscribe. You can become a member over there on YouTube. You can send jewels. You can send donations. You can send super chats in case the chat starts going by too fast, or you just want to appreciate me. I would appreciate it. You guys can send super chats over there. Hi, over there on Twitch, my lovelies. If you're watching over there and you are not subscribed, why aren't you subscribed? You can subscribe to me if you pay for a free Prime sub, or excuse me, if you pay for Prime, you get 1 free Prime sub a month to a Twitch content creator of your choice. Why not choose me, guys? And if you subscribe, you get access to the emotes, which are the same stickers over there, and you guys can send bits as well over there. Guys, I have my 100 goal that I have every single day. I would appreciate if we could start working on that. This is my job. This is what I do for a living. We are crowdfunded here, so it is all based off of your generous donations how I get paid, and I appreciate it. So make sure you are tipping your content creator for the work that we do and put in here. Speaking of, W's to Peter for starting it off. Not only did Peter give me crabs this morning, Peter gave me 1353 for it's time to start it off right. #PayPig. Thank you so much. I don't have to do the math on that because that is what I think it is, right, Peter? Unless you're leading me astray. It should be 8647. So that's where we are going to get started today. Alrighty. Let's see what we got over here. Let me reset this real quick and we can get started. Ooh, ice creams. Let's do that. Yeah, donate to my Trumpy Bear Fund. According to my community in Discord, I absolutely am purchasing the coin that Donald Trump is selling for about $12,000 that we didn't talk about. For the UFC fight. And I said, yeah, of course I purchased that. But the only thing I have left is a Trumpy Bear Cheris Teddy that has a coin in its foot. So we're raising money for that right now. So let's make sure that we're doing that, okay? I don't know that I... Evan, how are you today?
I'm fine.
Okay,
I'm all right.
Did you vote for Trump?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Okay, cool. Have a wonderful day. All right. Hello.
Well, you're gonna have me play the Chicks on repeat for a while now.
I almost played the one that they did last night on Jimmy Kimmel, but the reason I didn't is because then I'd have to remove it even from, like, it's just...
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, it's great.
I love the Chicks.
Okay, Evan, you were too young to vote for him. I hope that you vote in your midterms. You said you support MAGA. That's great. Please stop spamming my chat. Okay, we are going to get started today. I've talked about the fact that we need to get to this portion. We did it, a week ago, a couple weeks ago too, where it took a while to get to this portion, but we're going to do it today because of some bombshell reporting coming out of New York Times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about the Epstein files. We are going to be talking about the abuse of children, very graphic abuse of children, allegations of abuse of children by President Trump. So if you are somebody who cannot handle listening to the stuff about Epstein, that's totally fine. I'm giving you the space now to leave for maybe an hour. and come back if you need to, okay? So I'm just giving you guys that trigger warning that this is the stuff we are going to be covering. If you have the spoons, though, I think you should, because we cannot do anything about it by ignoring it, okay? So we don't want to do that. So we are going to get to the New York Times story first, and we are going to read through the entire thing, because it is coming out. There's reporting coming out that they tried. We already know. We already know they tried to cover it up, but we are getting reporting that they met up in the Situation Room to try to cover this up, and that they had a plan from the beginning, which we knew. We absolutely knew, but for some reason, other people seemed to not. So we're gonna go over that now.
I will also say I'll let Discord know once you get off the Epstein, just in case of people left, so they can come back here and not stick around a man.
Absolutely. So if you are not a part of my Discord, please go join that. The link tree is in my bio. You will probably have to paste it into a separate browser to join. There's a bit of verification, but that way you can get those notifications for when we are done with this segment, okay? All right, let's get started. So, New York Times Magazine, inside the White House freakout over the Epstein files. The president's top advisors. I'm going to dip for a few minutes. Facts read it this morning, plus I need absolutely Newshound. Go ahead. I knew Facts covering it. I love him for that. The president's top advisors gathered in a series of Situation Room meetings as they struggled to contain a scandal engulfing Donald Trump himself. On July 17th, 2025, at around 6 o'clock in the evening, President Trump's top officials filed into the White House Situation Room, the secure bunker where classified and high-stakes national security matters are discussed and decided. This was where President Barack Obama, along with Vice President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and the president's national security team watched the raid that ended with the death of Osama bin Laden in 2011. Now, however, Trump's most senior advisors had gathered without him to figure out how to gain some measure of control over a very different kind of crisis threatening to engulf the presidency, the Epstein files. Let me turn that on before I go. Okay. 10 days earlier, the Justice Department and the FBI had jointly released a memo that bluntly stated that their review had found no client list of powerful men from whom the notorious pedophile Jeffrey Epstein had allegedly procured underage girls and young women, intended to put to rest years of speculation and end the pressure campaign to release the voluminous material in the department's possession. The memo instead had the opposite effect, setting off a backlash that was notably loud among the MAGA base. And it was about to get worse. The Wall Street Journal was preparing a damaging article about Trump's relationship with Epstein. The president's desperate attempts to kill the story had failed. His team now had to get everyone onto the same page about how to counter the growing swarm of attention. They needed a gesture of transparency to appease an increasingly angry base, but also a way to convey the message that the president was sympathetic to his supporters' concerns, which itself was a problem, because he clearly wasn't. Vice President J.D. Vance took a seat at the head of the table in the John F. Kennedy conference room of the Situation Room complex. Quote, "This is a huge problem," he told the group. Arrayed around him were the White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, the White House Counsel David Warrington, the Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, the Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich, the Communications Director I don't know if it's Chung or Chang. I can never remember how to say his last name. I can see him in my head. I know what he looks like. The Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, the Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward Jr., and the Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair. Attorney General Pam Bondi and the FBI Director Kash Patel joined on speakerphone. The vice president appeared panicked to others in the room about the way the subject of Epstein was already dividing the MAGA coalition. Some senior officials had the impression that Vance had bought into the darkest theories about Epstein and a cabal of predators hidden within the country's ruling class. Wiles would tell others that the vice president had proved himself to be a major conspiracy theorist. Another top official said later that Vance had been pounding on the Epstein issue since the release of the memo. He was privately pressing for the administration to release all the Epstein files, everything in the Justice Department's possession, even encouraging a congressional investigation. So what I will say, and we've said this multiple times, I do not say that Donald Trump ran on the Epstein files. He didn't campaign on it. However, MAGA had been asking for it because MAGA and the QAnon conspiracy theorists had been talking about this for a long time. And he was asked this question in a Fox News interview when he was running about whether he would release those files. That was the only one that he said yes, but those ones maybe less so because there could be false allegations in the files. That was really the only time we heard about it, but MAGA, and I will say thank goodness, was not going to let it go. Vance had also floated to colleagues an extraordinary PR gambit that the White House enlist Tucker Carlson to interview Epstein's longtime girlfriend and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. It might help the president if Maxwell is willing to state that Trump had not been part of any wrongdoing with Epstein. Now, they'll probably get into it later in this article, but what we do know is that deputy attorney, at the time, Todd Blanche, did go and interview Ghislaine Maxwell. And then she was moved to they call a lower security prison, where she can just walk around throughout the day. She gets special privileges, even though she was accused not only of trafficking the young girls for Epstein, but also of abusing them herself. Vance told the group he believed all the files should be released as soon as possible. He argued that Congress was going to force the release of the files eventually. It was already clear that a bipartisan coalition in favor of such action was forming on Capitol Hill, and the momentum was going in one direction. If the administration got out ahead of this and released everything voluntarily, including whatever materials existed about the president, it would at least get credit for transparency. The alternative was to let the story drag on for months as information. I don't know what is going on with my brain. It's because I can hear myself. The alternative was to let the story drag on for months as information dripped out, each new revelation renewing the cycle of suspicion and fury. Better to rip the bandage off and move on. Even the unsubstantiated allegation and anecdotes about Trump should go out, Vance argued. They were going to surface regardless, and if the administration published them first, it would demonstrate good faith and take the oxygen out of the conspiracy theories. His arguments fell on skeptical ears, but some advisors thought it would be a good idea to have Justice Department officials call a news conference to explain their position on the Epstein affair, going beyond the memo that precipitated the crisis. So they're going to get into that. Let's remember, there was reporting, I don't remember if it was New York Times or Wall Street Journal, that there was a birthday book written for Epstein, and that Donald Trump had drew a birthday card, a vulgar birthday card, in this book. That was the reporting that came out. Trump and his administration denied it. Trump said, I don't draw. I would never do that. That didn't happen. Come to find out, after the Oversight Committee on the Epstein files, specifically Democrats within the Oversight Committee, subpoenaed the Epstein estate, again, not the DOJ, subpoenaed the Epstein estate, we were able to get that birthday book, and we got the picture of looks like a prepubescent child's body, with his wording to Epstein. So he lied. He lied to the American people about that memo, about that birthday card. It did exist. At this point in the meeting, Blair spoke up. With all due respect, he said, the communication strategy of this group got us here. I don't know that it's going to get us out. And if you're going to go in front of the press, you've got a lot of work to do. He began to ask Hector. They do it to me like every day, every single day. The communication strategy of this, I don't know that it's going to get us out. And if you're going to go in front of the press, you've got a lot of work to do. He began to ask pointed mock questions, demonstrating how difficult a news conference might be. As the president's former defense attorney, Blanche had a unique vantage point in the discussion. He was better equipped than anyone else in the room to weigh the ideas being discussed against Trump's personal and political interests. Blanche laid out what he saw as their best options. Option 1 was to petition federal district courts in Florida and New York to unseal the grand jury testimonies, the secret transcripts of prosecutors, presentations of witnesses, and evidence in their efforts to obtain indictments in past Epstein-related cases. As those were almost certain to contain no significant new information, everyone agreed that this option was a good idea, and not only because a release was unlikely to damage the president. Under the federal rules of criminal procedure, the secrecy of grand jury materials is regarded by most federal judges as almost always inviolate, and the bar for any release is exceptionally high. If the courts refuse to unseal them, as Blanche predicted, they could shift the blame for withholding the Epstein material away from the Trump administration and onto the judges, and all the better if the judges had been appointed by Democratic presidents. Blanche's suggestion would make it appear that the White House wanted the materials released when it was almost certain not to happen. We saw that play out, didn't we? Kash Patel, Todd Blanche, came on to all sorts of news stations, Newsmax, News Nation, Fox News, and talked about the fact that they said, well, the judges have this information. The judges are the ones not releasing it. What do you expect us to do? well, you could release it because you also have that information, and one such judge said so, specifically to FBI Director Kash Patel. They said that all of the information that we have, you have. What we cannot release, which is what you are requesting, is grand jury testimony. We cannot release that to you. That is sealed because it has grand jurors' information on it, which then any base that is still loyal to Donald Trump, regardless of the Epstein files, could go after them. We cannot do that. We cannot unseal it. So they tried to give themselves an out. We saw it play out. That was step one of their cover-up, was trying to give themselves an out with the courts. Option 2 was to have Justice Department lawyers question Maxwell and publicly release the transcript, a twist on the idea proposed earlier by Vance. Blanche offered to interview Maxwell himself, which he did. Right? And there were questions she didn't answer. We don't know if we got the entire list of what he asked her. And it was very, very weird in the questions he asked, the way that he asked them, and the fact that she was then moved. What if we got her to talk to Congress? Vance suggested. Blanche raised the possibility that Maxwell's lawyer might expect something in return for her candor. Warrington, the White House counsel, responded by laying out the available choices without advocating any of them. Maxwell could be given a pardon, he said, or she could have her sentence reduced. At that, several around the table spoke up to register their strong disapproval. Pardoning Maxwell, a trafficker of young girls, would create a huge PR problem, Chung said. He predicted that in the wake of a pardon, the Epstein accusers would be fanning out on TV, telling their stories, and ripping the administration to shreds, which is true. Blair was adamantly opposed to a pardon. We cannot offer Ghislaine Maxwell anything. A, I don't know why we would, and B, if we give Ghislaine Maxwell any sort of break whatsoever, and then she turns around and says nice things about us, or says nice things about us and we give her a break, it will undermine the entire point of her saying good things. That will feed the conspiracy theory, period. If there's nothing for her to say that hurts us, we shouldn't have to offer her anything. The consensus was that calling for the release of the grand jury material was the best course of action, which is what I just said, right? That is what they asked the courts for. Wiles told the group she would discuss the matter with Trump and ask if he would send a Truth Social post calling for the release of the sealed grand jury documents. Just then, by the way, Mr. Payne, as you sit here and spam, okay, about things you think Donald Trump is doing well, I would like it if you would focus on the fact that the White House has been covering up and continues to cover up harm against children. Why has the DOJ not prosecuted anyone? Why have they not prosecuted anyone? This is before the Epstein Transparency Act. So this is July of 2025. So this was before the Epstein Transparency Act was forced and signed into law. Just then, the Wall Street Journal article they had been trying to kill was published online. Cell phones are forbidden in the Situation Room, so a staff member brought in printed copies of the explosive report. Here we go, what I talked about, which detailed how Trump and many others had created birthday cards and letters to be assembled by Maxwell into a special book for Epstein. In 2003, the birthday card attributed to Trump depicted a nude woman, hand-drawn and inscribed with an imagined dialogue between the two men about a wonderful secret. The drawing was signed with what appeared to be Trump's distinctive jagged Sharpie signature in place of the woman's pubic hair. In the days before publication, Trump, in an effort to quash the story, had told News Corp Chief Executive Robert Thompson, News Corp owner Robert Murdoch, and the Journal's editor-in-chief Emma Tucker, practically shouting, the president told Tucker, who is British, that she must hate America. He told her he would file a lawsuit. But none of his bullying had worked, and now, as the group sat quietly reading the full story in the Situation Room, Wiles readied a public denial for the president, which he soon posted on social media. Remember, he denied that the card exists. This is before we saw it. This is them reporting it exists. And remember, he never filed this lawsuit, and I wonder why. Could it be a pesky little thing called discovery? Shortly after this, the president posted again. He was going with the plan his advisors had hashed out in the Situation Room, though it was clear he didn't like having to do it. Quote, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetrated by the Democrats should end right now. In response to a request for comment, a White House spokeswoman, Abigail Jackson, repeated Trump's claims that he was innocent in all Epstein-related matters, adding that, quote, by releasing thousands of pages of documents, cooperating with the House Oversight Committee's subpoena request, signing the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and calling for more investigations into Epstein's Democrat friends, President Trump has done more for Epstein's victims than anyone before him. Again, Donald Trump had to be forced, right? Mike Johnson refused to bring the Epstein files on the floor for a vote. At the start of last summer, as far as outside observers could see, Trump appeared to be at the pinnacle of his power. He had just bombed nuclear sites in Iran, completed a blitz of executive orders to reshape the immigration system, and rammed through Congress his signature piece of domestic legislation, the Big Beautiful Bill. He was using the levers of government to go after his enemies, and out of fear and desperation, America's corporate titans were falling over themselves to genuflect. But behind the scenes, the Epstein crisis was paralyzing the Trump administration to a far greater extent than the public knew. In their public statements, Trump's advisors were full of bravado, dismissing the crisis. In reality, it was consuming the highest ranks of the administration, as no issue had for the president's team since the Russia investigation in his first term. His aides were determined to keep their rising sense of panic out of public view. Brandon, the survivors did go public. The survivors did. Did you know that? Did you know that Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche have not met with the survivors or reached out to them? Do you know that? We know their names. You know how we know their names? Because Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche fucked up and didn't redact their names like they were supposed to per the law. Did you know that? But it's fine. Keep victim blaming. The Justice Department had struggled with just how to dispose of the Epstein matter since the beginning of Trump's second term. The issue was all-consuming for the president's political base, but also potentially compromising for the president himself in ways that officials in the new administration didn't fully understand. Any path forward would be fraught. Some of that complexity was self-inflicted. In the engine room of the MAGA movement, the Epstein files were potent fuel. Elon Musk has used his social media platform to repeatedly question why a client list had not been released. Donald Trump Jr. and J.D. Vance had invoked the Epstein files as a broader campaign message to argue that powerful people were hiding the truth from Americans. Tucker Carlson and the young conservative leader Charlie Kirk had each insisted that the government should release the documents, and each floated the idea that there was an expansive cover-up in progress. Trump himself had been cagey on the Lex Friedman podcast in September of 2024. When asked about releasing the client list, Trump responded, "I'd certainly take a look at it," adding, "I'd have no problem with it. The list probably will be made public," he said, but he sounded less enthusiastic. In private, Trump later told Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene that a release of Epstein material could hurt some of his friends. He repeatedly insisted that he had done nothing wrong and that the whole saga was fake news designed to harm him politically. But his posture was overtaken by the growing frenzy among his supporters. Throughout 2024, Greene had made it her mission to force the release of the files, and there were so many others. The far-right influencer Laura Loomer, the conservative activist Scott Presler, Chaya Raichek from Libs of TikTok. But when it came to propagating the Epstein files as evidence of a deep state capable of evil, two podcasters were not to be outdone: Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Patel, a National Security Council Director for Counterterrorism and Defense Department Chief of Staff in the first Trump administration, had repeatedly claimed in podcast interviews that the government was hiding Epstein's black book or client list, and he frequently asserted that the FBI was deliberately withholding names to protect the powerful. Patel promised that a second Trump administration would release everything to restore public trust. On the Dan Bongino show, Bongino's background as a Secret Service agent had lent authority to his claims of a cover-up. What the hell are they hiding with Jeffrey Epstein? He'd ask his large audience of MAGA devotees. The release of the client list would rock the political world, he predicted. The Washington swamp was not telling you the truth. And so, as they took office in 2025, Trump's advisors were subject to intense pressure of their own making. They did this because he hired a bunch of right-wing conspiracy theorists, right? What did Kash Patel and Dan Bongino say now? Does anybody remember by chance? Okay. Guys, while we're sitting here, please make sure we are doing the good things. You guys are killing it on the likes. Let's keep going with that. I would like to try and hit 300,000 today because I know you can. You hit 200,000 yesterday, but I shouldn't have to yell at you to do so. Let's make sure we are doing those good things. If you're watching over there on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button for me. I would appreciate it. And guys, we have 86.47 left in the goal. If we could start working on that, Dollar Train, $2 train to the link tree in my bio, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, all there. We like it when you shame us. You're very, very naughty, trademark. I know that about you, though. Okay. Attorney General Pam Bondi quickly made things much worse. First, in a Fox News interview on February 21st, she appeared to confirm the existence of an Epstein client list, something that the MAGA base had believed was sitting in the files hidden, and hinted that its release was imminent. Asked whether the Justice Department might release the names, she responded, quote, "It's sitting on my desk right now to review." They'll make the victims disappear? Who will? Who's going to do that, Brandon? But many viewed what came 6 days later as an even more egregious misstep. On February 27th, the White House Communications Office scheduled a lineup of cabinet officials to brief popular right-wing influencers, same thing, in the Roosevelt Room. The session began with Vice President Vance, followed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, walking the influencers through the administration's agenda. In attendance was a who's who of online MAGA: Mike Cernovich, Liz Wheeler, Colin Rugg, DC Drano. The president himself brought them to the Oval Office and gave them custom-designed challenge coins as a token of his appreciation. Before everything went wrong, one of them would remark, "It was the best day of my life." Then, the Attorney General and her team walked into the Roosevelt Room carrying boxes. Bondi had brought binders as handouts for the influencers. Her aides would later tell colleagues that the FBI had prepared them with the assurance that they contained revelatory details. Someone on her staff said, "Watch this. This is cool. This is going to be epic." Do we remember that? Do we remember them walking out with their binders? And they said that this is just step one, right? This wasn't the end. This is just step one. I love how much MAGA is coping in the YouTube chat, by the way. Talking about Democrats and child transformation, which is not anything that anybody advocates for. You're coping very, very hard with what's going on. Okay. But as Bondi's... Oh, look, there it is. See, there they are. Phase 1. That's what it says. The Epstein Files... Phase 1. Remember that? Remember that time? It was an interesting time. But as Bondi's staff started distributing the binders, the blood pressure of other officials in the room skyrocketed. They had no idea what was in their handouts. The Attorney General was distributing something she was calling the Epstein Files that had not been vetted by anyone in the White House. One official, opening the binder, began flipping through pages to see if Trump's name was mentioned anywhere. A few pages in, right in the middle of the page, there it is. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, was at the White House that day. If news broke that the Epstein Files had been released before the president was to meet the press with the Prime Minister, that would be all the journalists would want to talk about, and Trump would be blindsided. One of Trump's aides hastily steered the influencers out of the White House, telling them that the content of the binders was embargoed until after the president's news conference with Starmer, but that the communications office would be more than happy to talk about the files afterward. As the influencers left, they snapped selfies in front of the White House holding their binders, quickly posting the pictures on social media. They had now created a new shockwave of anticipation for what might be in them. That's all we want. What'd you say? All the survivors have to do publicly is name the offenders. The problem with that, Brandon, is that you have an entire administration fighting against them right now. That does not put them in a safe space. Actually, all that we want is for the administration to do their job and to go after the people who harmed these women because they have that information. It should not be on the survivors to bring this information forward when they have, because the information that the FBI and the DOJ have is all the information that the survivors have given to them over the years. Okay? Like some others in the White House, Bondi had either grossly underestimated or simply been blind to the voracious appetite of the MAGA base for information about Epstein. Her binders contained information about him and his activities, flight logs, contact lists, summaries of items taken from his residences after his 2019 arrest, and other material. But nearly all of it had been previously released. Oh. Bondi had somehow simultaneously oversold and trivialized the Epstein files, and now the influencers were made to feel like dupes. Do we remember that part? They were like, oh, well, we got all these pictures. Oh, pictures we already had. Oh, we got these flight logs. Flight logs we already had from 2024. It's interesting that they just gave out the information that people already had. In the Roosevelt Room, Bondi had told the influencers that this was just the first tranche of files. There would be more coming, she assured them, but that story would change too. Did we ever get a phase 2 binder? I don't remember that happening. Justice Department officials were reviewing the Epstein material, but months would pass before the department or any of Trump's closest advisors knew just how many documents there were. More than 3 million pages of files related to Epstein, and potentially as many as 6 million. In the early months, officials were focused on going through a trove of what are known as 302 forms, records of FBI agents' interview notes with witnesses, some of whom were victims of Epstein. These were raw records, often containing unverified information. Trump was mentioned numerous times, as were other prominent men. Now, these are interviews with FBI agents accusing people of crimes. That doesn't mean they're true. Like they said, unverified information. But again, why has that information not been followed up on? Why is James Comer and Todd Blanche talking about moving on, that we're not doing it anymore? In June, 4 months after the circus in the Roosevelt Room with the influencers, Bondi and Blanche briefed the president on the status of the Epstein review. "We've gone through the files," Blanche told Trump. "There's not a lot there. A lot of child pornography. Obviously, we can't put out any of that. We wouldn't want you to. There are some mentions of you, but nothing substantive." Most of Trump's advisors had rejected out of hand the idea of releasing the FBI's raw interview notes. More importantly, they wanted to avoid putting out anything that could damage the president. With full transparency and non-starter, a small group of White House and Justice Department officials decided to draft a memo that would explain why the department was not releasing any further information about Epstein. But even the process of composing the memo was fraught, in part because no one wanted their name on it, and in part because of deep concerns within the leadership of the FBI. For weeks, Patel and Bongino, the deputy FBI director, had grown more infuriated as they realized the scale of the mess for which they were now being blamed. They repeatedly raised alarms internally that the Epstein crisis was gathering momentum with Trump supporters. Bongino wanted to convey something definitive to the MAGA base, and he and Patel pushed for the immediate release of the surveillance footage from the federal facility where Epstein was found dead in his cell. Bongino hated the Justice Department's Nothing to See Here memo being drawn up for public release. He told Patel this would in no way align with their promises of transparency after taking over the FBI, and he objected to putting the FBI seal on the letterhead, but he was overruled. Patel privately shared many of Bongino's concerns, but in an internal email on July 2nd, the FBI director gave his support for the memo. "Thanks for the edits, and I still believe this is the correct vehicle forward," Patel wrote. "With the occasional typo to a small group of colleagues, including Blanche, I'm happy to add any additional sentences to complete the shortfall, but I do think we address specifically why more can't be released as it relates to specific topics. See Sam." Bondi, I want to kind of sweep through this a little bit faster. Bondi rarely used her Justice Department email. It was not on the chain where the group worked on the memo. In the White House, Trump had no interest in releasing anything, and senior officials, including Wiles and Blair, were initially unconvinced about the reach of the Epstein crisis. So let's get to on July 7th, Department of Justice and the FBI released the memo. It was brief, an unsigned 1.5-page statement explaining that after an exhaustive search of its databases and drives, and network drives as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored, and corresponding review of more than 300 gigabytes of evidence, the department concluded that there was no evidence. Epstein had maintained a client list. So that's what the memo said. What is this? Less than 5 months after Bondi had referred to a secret client list of high-profile predators, the case was closed. Or so it seemed. They thought that the memo would be it. It was not. The release of the surveillance video, which Bongino and Patel had intended as a gesture of transparency, further fueled the fire. The Department of Justice ended up releasing roughly 11 hours of prison video, intended to show that nothing nefarious occurred, but the footage was missing a minute. A visible timestamp jumped from 11:58 p.m. to midnight. Bondi initially attributed this to a nightly system reset. The footage was later restored and released. Remember them lying about that? They said, well, no, every single night. Every night when it hits 11:58, there's a time jump to midnight. That's what Bondi told us, which was untrue because the footage was later restored and released. To many of Trump's followers, however, this was yet more evidence of cover-up. White House officials complained privately that they hadn't been told about the gap before the release. Social media lit up with blame, not just for Bondi, but for Patel and Bongino, too. Again, more of the memo. So now they're fighting with each other. You fucked this thing up from the start, Bongino yelled. The way you've been talking about this, that dumb fucking charade with the Epstein files, the they're on my desk nonsense, all the promises to the folks out there. Patel and Bongino both subsequently told a White House official that Bondi needed to resign. 2 days later, on July 9th, the two men were summoned to a meeting with Wiles and Bondi in the Situation Room complex. They were the last to enter the small wood-paneled room. Seated around the table were Bondi, Wiles, Blanche, and Taylor Budowich, one of Wiles' deputies. The moment Bongino sat down, Wiles told him that she'd been informed he leaked a sensitive story about Epstein and Trump to ABC News. I'll tell you what, Bongino replied, I'll give you $100,000 cash right now. I'm not kidding. Walk out to West Exec, put that reporter on speaker, and get him to admit I leaked it. $100,000. Wiles snapped back. Well, we all got ourselves into this. Bongino cut her off. No, 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 no. We didn't get ourselves into anything. I warned you guys about this the whole time and you ignored me. And exactly what I said was going to happen, happened. And now you're pretending I was in on this. I was never in on this. So then Wiles says, going forward, we're all in. We're all in it together, right? Bongino says, no, I'm not. This is not my plan. I'm not part of this going forward. Forget it. I'm out of here. By the way, Bongino did end up leaving. They hoped he would resign right then, but he had not resigned yet. He did eventually resign. Because again, you hired conspiracy theorists. On July 12th, the president took to Truth Social to defend Bondi against criticism and to urge his boys and gals to stop wasting time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cared about. Trump told aides he was very unhappy with some of his most influential supporters, including Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, and Megyn Kelly, all of whom were publicly urging the administration to come clean. Kirk had held a Turning Point USA event the previous day that turned into an Epstein grievance fest with one speaker after another bashing Bondi over her handling of the situation. Trump had called Kirk and scolded him. I want to get to... Okay. As the president was trying to redirect everyone from Epstein on social media, members of both parties began to push the other way. Many Democrats embraced the growing Epstein scandal as a top focus in their messaging and as a weapon against Trump. They were joined by a few renegade Republicans, which added to the political pressure on the president's team. Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican. Do we remember what just happened to Massie in the primaries? Oh, Donald Trump endorsed Gallerin against Thomas Massie. And also, it was the most money spent in a primary that we have seen yet. I wonder why. Could it be because he was going against Thomas Massie for being one of the only Republicans that were a little handful who wanted to release the files, which, by the way, he went against everybody who wanted to release the files, right? He withheld money in Colorado from Lauren Boebert. He endorsed Nancy Mace's competition, and she lost her governor's race literally a couple days ago. Marjorie Taylor Greene, he completely railed against. Why is it the people who wanted to release the files? Why did he go against them in such a manner? But Thomas Massie, a Republican, and Ro Khanna, a Democrat, filed H.R. 4405, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, in the House. And although they did not yet have the votes for the bill, it would become the next battleground as the president dug in against releasing information. Word reached the White House in late July, meanwhile, that a subpoena would soon be coming from the House Oversight Committee led by James Comer, a Republican from Kentucky. It had been pushed by committee Democrats with the help of some Republicans, and it compelled the release of files the Justice Department had on Epstein. Again, Trump met with this same group of people about this information. They wanted to comply and cooperate with the House subpoena, but that the priority was to release information that demonstrated Trump was not involved in the files. Blanche gave an assessment of the Epstein material he had personally reviewed. The conversation turned to how these files should be released to the public. The idea already in the works was to put all Epstein-related material on a website. That way, they could overwhelm the magosphere with far greater volumes of real information in the form of a huge database. The website was easy to build. They put it together. We know that. By late summer, it was plainly apparent to the president's top aide that the Epstein saga was not the same as the countless other crises that had weathered during their service to Trump. To their great surprise and growing disquiet, Trump's old tricks of deflection and denial were not working. It was Blanche who interviewed Maxwell over 2 days. She told him she had witnessed no troubling behavior by Trump and didn't recall him sending the birthday card drawn in the shape of a nude woman. Soon after, she was quietly moved to a minimum security federal prison camp in Texas, a transfer left unexplained at first, which only deepened the public outrage. Blanche said nearly 5 months later that Maxwell had faced numerous threats against her life. That's what they said. As the calls for transparency grew louder, the top ranks of the Trump administration spent more time in the bunker. By now, the Situation Room itself had become inseparable from the crisis. On August 13, Trump's team met again in the secure complex at 6 p.m. for 2 hours to refine the Epstein defense strategy. Again, the same group were there. The vice president once again pushed to release as much of the Epstein files as possible. With an eye on the public messaging, he proposed he should be the one to appear on Rogan's influential podcast. Vance argued if he was the one to appear on Rogan's show, that only part of the conversation would be about Epstein. I really don't care about that. Suddenly, one of the officials in the Situation Room raised the subject of a disturbing but uncorroborated accusation against Trump that had come to light in unsealed filings from a 2015 defamation case brought by Virginia Giuffre against Maxwell, which had been settled 2 years later. The second-hand accusation alleging a specific type of sexual abuse was the perfect example of something that would show up on the public website and put spotlight on Trump, whether it was true or not. Giuffre, who had met Epstein when she was a teenage spa attendant at Trump's Club Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, became one of the sex offender's most outspoken victims. Giuffre stated in late 2016 that, to her knowledge, Trump had done nothing improper. She died by suicide in April of 2025, 3 months after Trump returned to power. The old Giuffre case file included emails sent to a journalist by another Epstein victim, Sarah Ransom, who later sued Epstein and Maxwell. Epstein had also settled that case. Give me a second. It's a lot of reading. Guys, make sure we're still supporting. I know that this is very difficult information. It's going to get worse in this section, and I apologize for that. I love cake. No, this is actually a special circumstance of me reading this article. I usually get specific portions, and of course, live restricted. I usually get specific portions and create that. I go through a storyline of the facts. For this one, we wanted to read pretty much almost in its entirety. In the emails, Ransom claimed that she knew a girl in Epstein's sex trafficking ring named Jen, who said she had sex with Trump. Ransom also claimed that Jen had told her that Trump had a predilection for nipples and that he had aggressively flicked and sucked hers. We, on this show, had brought up that file from the DOJ's website. We had the EFTA file, we brought it up, and we read it. We read the entire file. Ransom wrote that she had seen evidence when she shared a bathroom with Jen. Quote, "They looked incredibly painful as they were red and swollen, and I remember wincing when I looked at them," she wrote. Ransom's credibility was not uncomplicated. She had made another claim that she possessed video footage of prominent men having sex with young girls in Epstein's entourage. She later retracted the claims, saying she feared for herself and her family if she proceeded. But after a federal judge ordered the unsealing of some of Giuffre case files in 2023, the document that connected Trump to the claim about abused nipples was among the material that came out. It was an unconfirmed allegation and had not been made publicly, but the disclosure led to some articles that were quickly lost in the swirl of election year news. Now, again, this does not mean he's guilty, but it means that they have been meeting in the room the entire time to cover this information up, knowing it was out there, and that was their concern. Their concern was protecting Trump and not actually investigating that maybe the person that they worked for was involved in this. Donald Trump this entire time has been lying and saying that he's exonerated from the Epstein files, that releasing the files proved him innocent when we don't have that information as true. He continued to lie to cover it up. Some of Trump's advisors in the Situation Room had never heard of the nipple claim. Those who had seemed to have only a passing familiarity with it. Many in the room thought this was all just discredited nonsense, but it might not matter. The Ransom emails could get new attention if they were included in a public-facing and searchable Epstein library that carried the branding of the Justice Department. An administration official had already searched for Trump-related materials on the still private test version of the website, and the nipple material was among the first items to show up. None of the credibility issues would come into consideration if a government-endorsed database gave Ransom's claim about Trump a stamp of validity. This is out there, one of the officials told the group in the Situation Room. They're going to make a huge scene of this, even though it's not true and everybody knows it. How do we know it's not true? Did we investigate to find it not true, or is that just something they assume because that is their boss and who they work for? Could it have been that? Maybe. Why aren't you questioning it? That has been our issue from the start, is you guys are not questioning Trump on this. Most of you. Some of you have talked to me and said you regret your vote because of it. Blanche argued that in context, the Ransom document and Ransom disavowal of some of her other claims would make clear why the allegations related to Trump had never been pursued for prosecution. Besides, these allegations were already available online because of what had been unsealed, so there was no reason to leave them off the Justice Department website. Vance said he thinks we should put it out. Let's keep going. For a few weeks, they thought they had found a way out. The subpoena from Comer's committee had specifically requested Justice Department's documents, communications with the White House, and material from the Epstein and Maxwell criminal case files, not material from civil litigation, such as the Ransom emails. They could comply with the letter of the subpoena, post the Justice Department material to a stripped-down version of the planned website, and leave the rest aside. Civil cases were separate matters. outside the remit of the Justice Department, and the subpoena allowed for another escape hatch. The Justice Department could withhold certain documents as long as it explained to housemakers what they were and why they were held back. That was part of the law. If they withheld it, they needed to ask why. By mid-November, the bipartisan coalition the Trump team had been worried about since the summer finally had the votes to force the administration's hand. The Epstein File Transparency Act passed the House and Senate in quick succession on November 19th. Trump, yielding to the inevitable, signed it into law. And again, I have a perfect video on that on my profile. If you would like to go watch it on YouTube or TikTok, that goes over the exact process and how Mike Johnson tried to keep it from that. The new law went further than the House subpoena. It sought a broader tranche of files and contained a warning to the administration that no record shall be withheld, delayed, or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. It sought everything that Trump had spent the better part of a year trying to suppress. The legislators who passed the bill had no idea how many files they had mandated to be released within a month. The pages would end up numbering in the millions, and the president, his family, and places like Mar-a-Lago Estate would be referred to more than 38,000 times, according to a New York Times analysis. The Trump Justice Department said there was no client list, but the entire episode was another flashing light in an era when the belief in the American system of justice had corroded to the point of collapse. Raw witness accounts and evidence from incomplete criminal investigations were never meant to be seen by the public. There were long-standing systems in place to protect both the accused and the accuser. The files amounted to a public dump of any Justice Department document that mentioned Epstein's name, no matter whether the information was confirmed as accurate or not. The release pages did name many powerful men. Among them was Epstein's former close friend, now the President of the United States. In a January 2020 email, a federal prosecutor told a colleague that Trump had flown on Epstein's private jet more than anyone knew. Flight records in the file showed at least 8 trips between 1993 and 1996. Sometimes with his second wife, Marla Maples, sometimes with his children. In January 2024, Trump declared that he had never been on the plane. So he lied. Again. What else remained undisclosed? The question would only sharpen as people comb through what was redacted or missing. The Justice Department, after more than 3.5 million documents were made public, said no others needed to be released. Trump characteristically was creating his own reality. He had long claimed that everyone else was corrupt, especially his critics. These files, he would say, despite the avalanche of references to himself, were the proof. There were a lot of questions about it, he told reporters in February of 2026, but nothing on me. Except we all had lots of questions on me. In an internal memo circulated in March of 2026, the president's pollster Fabrizio summarized findings from 2 nights of focus groups conducted that month. The memo listed the Epstein files as the 6th most important issue raised in the focus groups, behind inflation, the economy, foreign policy, immigration, and healthcare, but ahead of data centers, military issues, crime and safety, and being pro-working class. In the section on key takeaways of the focus groups, Fabrizio's memo stated there is also consistent mention of the Epstein files, which came up in every group and is a real negative with some of these voters. The Epstein crisis had exposed something that some of Trump's closest advisors spent months refusing to see. The president could break institutions, redirect the federal government against his enemies, and bring the world's richest men into the Oval Office sparing tribute, but he could not, it turned out, make Jeffrey Epstein disappear. This is stuff, by the way, it's interesting to me that we're calling it bombshell reporting. I've been covering this for a year and a half. I've covered this for a year and a half. There was a good month where my only subject on the background was about Trump and Epstein. So if you read this as a Trump supporter, and this is your line, where were you? Because we were here waiting. We knew. We knew who he was. You know what? Actually, I'll take it back. It wasn't just a year and a half I was doing this. It was longer. You want to know why? Because it was a civilly adjudicated sexual assaulter with 26 other allegations, admitting himself that he grabs women by the pussy. I move on them like a bitch. I just start kissing them. I don't even wait. It's interesting that we knew. We knew. And now it's shocking to find out that he set up an entire network to cover for him. That's probably the only part that's meant to be bombshell, is it wasn't just Donald Trump hiding it. It was everybody else around him. W's to Juicy Juice for the $5 for the hard work. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My voice is tired from reading that. I just want you to know. It's a very long article. I will have it made available for you. The one that I'm posting should get you around the paywall. If it does not, there are paywall removers that you should be able to access. I do not think these kinds of articles should be behind a paywall. I think that's bullshit. But, you know, here we are. Okay. Let me see, because do I want to play this video, or is this saying the same thing?
The Trump administration.
Okay, so we're going to be kind of repetitive today, but it is important. So we're going to play this video. This video goes over what I just read, but it's going to do it with pictures and clips as the story unfolds. It's only about 5 minutes. We are going to do that. I want to do this. Epstein might take all day today, and I apologize if that is the case, but it is important. We are not going to stop talking about this and the fact that Donald Trump and his people continue to cover it up and did plan to cover it up this entire time.
As we're sitting here, there are polls popping up that does have resources. If it does get a little too much, if you have to step away at any point in time, it's not a problem. Again, if we get off this, I will let you know in the Discord. If not, you know, even turning down the stream noise and just tapping it is fine as well. Right. Just making you guys are staying engaged, make sure you guys are doing all the wonderful things, and there's no reason why we should still be sitting at $81.
W's you guys for the 100,000 likes. So you guys just hit 100,000 likes. Thank you so much for helping to protect the live while we cover these heavy subjects that TikTok does not like. I appreciate you guys doing that. Keep it up. You guys are doing wonderful. And as Olive said, I have 8147. Thank you, Juicy Juice, for getting that down. 8147 left of my goal. Again, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. This is my job. This is what I do for a living. I dig for this stuff so that you don't have to, and so I can present it to you. So make sure you're tipping your content creators. Make sure we are knocking out that goal. Dollar trains, $2 trains. I know you guys can do it. I've seen you guys do it. Let's get working on that, okay? So, side note question, just as a funny, I guess, because we are in some heavy subjects. Somebody said, do you think Hassan and Asmongold are in love with each other? No, I think Asmongold is in love with Hassan. Hassan doesn't talk about Asmongold, but for some reason, Asmongold takes every opportunity he can to talk about Hassan, so.
Because Asmongold wants to talk about someone that, you know, makes him look good. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were watching the Trump administration in 2025,
you would have gotten the impression that the Epstein files were a relatively minor issue.
President Trump suggested that nobody cared.
He said that the Epstein story was boring.
That this was a hoax.
These files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama.
But what we learned while we were reporting our book, Regime Change, was just how much the Trump administration, up to the highest levels of the government, were paralyzed over how to deal with a growing crisis. Their biggest obstacle was Donald Trump.
Trump wanted it buried. He didn't want to release the files. His staff knew that this was an issue that they couldn't really talk about.
People in his orbit found him snapping at them if they even raised the issue of Jeffrey Epstein.
So over the summer of 2025, you had some of Trump's most senior advisors, the top level of the government, gathered in the Situation Room,
which is typically used for national security or responding to national disasters,
to figure out a way to spin their way out of this.
Not with the president, but among themselves.
It was an issue that came back to bite them, because many of the same senior people who were in the Situation Room were very strong advocates for releasing the Epstein files way back even before the 2024 campaign, and potentially a client list, a list of powerful men who were, you know, the rumors had it, involved in sex trafficking with Epstein. We have seen no evidence that there is a client list.
But the idea of a client list had been popularized.
Crystal Lace, I'm going to look for that. You said that, which wouldn't be the first time, by the way. The House has passed the SAVE Act. I think this will be like the third time that they have passed a version of the SAVE Act. It always, so far, dies in the Senate.
By, among others, Trump's future vice president.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
His future FBI director.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
And his future deputy FBI director.
The Epstein client list, I believe, is going to rock the political world. There's a reason they're hiding it.
After he was elected, his own attorney general appeared to confirm that a client list existed.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
They go through the files and the message changes very substantially. Very quickly, it became clear that Trump himself was mentioned numerous times across these files.
Does not mean that anything said there was verified about Trump or anyone else, but it did mean that releasing the files was a non-starter for the president and his team.
In the coming months, there were internal conversations about, well, what do we do?
In early July, the Justice Department and the FBI released a joint memo with no names attached to it, just letterhead, saying, in fact, there was no client list and that there were no other people who should be prosecuted in connection with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes.
And all of a sudden, many of his voters who thought that they were electing a president and people around him to get to the bottom of the Epstein story were suddenly feeling that they were actually part of a cover-up.
How many of you are satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation?
During this whole period, Trump was just getting more and more fed up.
He was very used to telling his base what to think and having them believe him.
He accused his supporters of being weaklings. He said he didn't want their support anymore.
He used expletives.
Debunk. You guys do this every single time we talk about this. You say, what about?
What about Biden?
The problem with that is, you can do that all you want to. What's Trump doing? That's fine. You want to go after them? Go after them too. What's Donald Trump doing? Because he's the one in the seat right now, right? It's interesting. Stop trying to protect him. I'm not trying to protect them. They can all go.
To say this was all fake. And again, said this was all the fault of Democrats.
Any attempts that Trump made to downplay the scandal only reinforced suspicions among his base that they were hiding something. So at those meetings last summer, when President Trump's most senior aides gathered away from him.
And also to Phoenix talking about the island, you do know that a majority of the crimes weren't done on the island, right? You know that, right? They were done in Florida. They were done in New York. They were done in New Mexico. You know that, right? Of course you know that, because you've paid attention.
The vice president thought that they should put everything out there, that Congress was going to force the issue anyway. Others, like the chief of staff, said absolutely no way the president would be okay with that. There was a conversation about whether Todd Blanche, who was the deputy attorney general at the time, whether he should go on Joe Rogan. The vice president said that he should be the one to go on Rogan.
What they didn't talk about was prosecuting additional men or any kind of widespread justice for the victims. We're talking about a number of women.
W's to Draco's Rose for the $20, saying, here's to your goal and for the maggots who say that what you do isn't a job. Keep making them uncomfortable. I'm trying to read the whole thing. And hopefully get through. I'm guessing you're saying get through to them. It won't let me. Why won't it let me read the rest? But I hope that's what you said. Yeah, get through. Thank you so much, Draco's Roses. I appreciate you for the 20, guys. That brings us down to 6147. So keep supporting, please.
Who say that they were victimized and abused by Jeffrey Epstein. Many of them were minors. The discussion in the Situation Room was not about how to give these women a hearing or a chance to tell their stories. These meetings were about how to handle the political fallout around the White House.
What ended up happening is their hand was forced by Congress. They ultimately passed, nearly unanimously, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Trump was forced to sign it, and what was clear from our reporting is even after that, even after the passage of this bill and the release of so many of these files, the issue didn't go away at all. Maggie and I obtained a document written by President Trump's top pollster, Tony Fabrizio.
God, you guys are bad at this. Mike, no, Donald Trump did not call the cops on Epstein. What you are talking about is a sheriff in Florida who specifically said that once it was announced that there was an investigation and a federal investigation into Epstein, Donald Trump called him after that was publicly announced. And what Trump said was, good job doing the things you're doing. We all knew something was going on. So he didn't call the cops on Epstein. He said, we all knew what he was doing. But he didn't call until after a public announcement of said investigation. So no. He said the Democrats had all the files and they never found anything. That's not true. The DOJ would have had the files, the FBI would have had the files, but also Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, her last appeal was technically the one she has appealed to SCOTUS in 2025. So no, there were things under seal by a judge. So no. Try again. Try again. W's, let me find that. W's to Super Magnum 0132. Thank you for the $50 super chat. Holy crap. You did not send a message though. You just sent it as a donation, which I appreciate. Thank you so much. I will say, unfortunately, I do not add that as part of my daily goal because of the fact that I don't get that but once a month, later in the month. But thank you so fucking much, Super Magnum. W's to you, guys. I want to see W's for that because that is huge. Holy fucking shit. Thank you so much.
I also wish every single time they did a big donation like that, they did put a note. I wish they would put notes.
Yeah, for a message. You deserve a message. Thank you for calling the stream. Can I get your age, state, and who you voted for?
Oh, yes. Voted for, of course, Kamala, obviously. I wanted to give you $5 because I'm listening to your show, and I think it's great.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. So what is the Cash App code? I'll send it up right away.
So when you're doing that, you should not need a code. You should be able to just send her. You should be able to send it without a code. I know that Venmo will sometimes ask for your phone number, the last four of the phone, but you shouldn't need it. There should be a button that you should be able to send anyway.
Okay, thank you. Keep doing the right thing. I'm watching.
Thank you for the support. I appreciate you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Because I know we had issue with that before. Venmo's weird about that. They'll be like, put in the last four of the phone number of the person you're sending it to. There should be a button that says send anyway. You don't need that. Just make sure it's me. Like I said, just Monida, my username in Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. So thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Even if you're just listening and supporting, I appreciate it. If you're tapping and supporting, I love you all so much. Thank you. Especially today. It's a very heavy subject. So AMP, I actually don't get food stamps. I used to. I haven't gotten food stamps in... You see, because I didn't get those last 2 months because I got scammed. So I haven't had food stamps since like October of 2025. So no.
Which described focus groups that were conducted in March of this year.
It was the sixth most important issue raised by voters in this focus group.
Head of crime and safety.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, Blue. Like I found the one that Chip Roy put forth in 2025, the SAVE Act, passed the House, but it hasn't moved since then. So I'm not seeing it in the news. I'm not seeing it on Twitter. So I don't know. The only thing I've seen right now is that they were having issues passing FISA because of the Bill Pulte appointment. So
The military, data centers. I mean, these are really potent political issues that ranked below the Epstein files. More than a year after they first started to try to deal with the Epstein crisis.
He just simply could not make it go away by telling his supporters they should believe him instead of something else.
And he keeps hiding it. Okay. So that's the New York Times stuff. I am going to get Robert Garcia. He has been one of the lead Democrats in the Oversight Committee. I'm going to get his reaction to the New York Times article. And then we have stuff on Bondi's transcript that we have not been able to get to specifically. And I didn't get stuff from Leslie Groff. She was Epstein's assistant, but she did testify as well. And Bill Gates was in there yesterday. So,
Congressman, 2.5 million documents, okay? 2.5 million documents, almost half, I know, as you have said.
I am going to mute because this video is a little bit quiet, and I apologize for that, but that's as high as I can get it.
Of the DOJ Epstein files have not been released. 2.5 million. And many of the pages that we have seen are covered in black. They are so heavily redacted. So when you read accounts like this in this new book by Maggie and Jonathan, members of the Trump circle saying that this is going to be as Iran-Contra in their reporting, do you believe that there are bombshells still hidden in the Epstein files?
There is no question that there are bombshells still in the Epstein files. It's why essentially half of the files have not been released. We have more information to gather from the Epstein estate, numerous other interviews from witnesses and those around Epstein's circle. But what is stunning about this reporting, and honestly, I read it, and the one thing that took me really by surprise is how President Trump's chief of staff was at all these meetings, but also Vice President Vance. And the fact that the vice president sat himself at the head of the Situation Room, a room that is designed, as we all know, for incredibly important classified national security type conversations. They're meeting in the Situation Room multiple times. We don't know exactly how many, with the Vice President of the United States leading these meetings, with the Chief of Staff to the President involved in these meetings. This is a White House...
Habibi, I agree. You said Trump's name is in the files, but it doesn't prove anything. I agree. I want it investigated. And what we are seeing is that Donald Trump, which we already knew, is Donald Trump did everything in his power to cover it up, and so did his staff. Why was his staff meeting in the Situation Room about these files and how they pertain to Trump? Not, oh God, these survivors. Oh my God, these poor victims. What do we do about this information? No, it wasn't that. It was how do we mitigate the disaster of the information that's going to be coming out? It was about protecting him. That's where I want you to have an issue. I'm not saying that he is guilty of anything until he's guilty of anything. But he's complicit in covering it up. He actively tried to cover it up. And it should be investigated. Why do you not want that?
Cover up. And it's the first time we begin to understand that the vice president has actually played a role in this cover up and as an Epstein investigation.
W's to Tashi. I'm assuming that's you who called me, and W's to you. Thank you so much for the $5 for MAGA is a mental illness. I mean, I do wonder, me and Olive have talked about this actually, what the studies that will be conducted, they've already started some, but the studies that will be conducted on what Trump did to people, what he did to their brains.
If you guys want to read something, for me to get my bachelor's degree early, I wrote a paper on the overran amygdala and the dangers of parasocial relationships. I basically wrote a paper on Trump and their supporters.
Mm-hmm. So, well, and somebody told me yesterday, and I forgot, if you're in here today, make yourself known. I totally forgot, but you said, I remember because it was CU Boulder and I'm in Colorado, is that CU Boulder is currently running a study on what they call TDS, but what we call it with TDS is Trump devotion syndrome. Why people are so willing to give up everything they believe in, so willing to give up their critical thinking skills to continue to support him. They already said they cannot release the victims' names or information. Habibi, no. Here's the thing. They did, though, right? So when the Epstein Transparency Act was written into law and they had 30 days to release all the files, they waited until the 30th day, still didn't release all the files, but what they did start to trickle out and release, they had unredacted survivor names. Did you know that? We just watched, a couple weeks ago, an entire hearing that Robert Garcia held in Florida with some of those survivors who had wanted to remain anonymous, who came out because their names were unredacted in the files. Because this administration is so fucking incompetent. But you know whose names were redacted? The people they were accusing, including Donald Trump.
We did not know that the vice president was giving suggestions, was talking to the FBI, was having conversations with the chief of staff. And so it is stunning. And I am convinced that we need to talk to every single person that had these meetings in that Situation Room.
And I mean, it is stunning to think about it. And Haberman and Swan also report that last summer, speaking of J.D. Vance, that, quote, Vance had also colleagues in extraordinary PR gambit that the White House enlists Tucker Carlson to interview Epstein's longtime girlfriend and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. It might help if it might help the president if Maxwell was willing to state that Trump had not been part of any wrongdoing with Epstein. Pretty incredible that they report that, because then that actually happened. It was just someone else who did the interview. It was Deputy Attorney.
So Habibi, I can't speak for previous Congresses. I can't speak for previous DOJs, right? What I can speak for and speak to is this Congress, is this legislature, is this administration. And what I can say, although you said you agree people need to be investigated, one side, and again, I'm not a Democrat, but one side is actively trying to get this information out there, actively trying to have these testimonies. Pam Bondi testified not under oath. She had DOJ lawyers present, and it was a closed-door hearing. Okay? One side is trying to get this information out there. One side wants it investigated. One side wants it prosecuted in this legislature. And one side is covering it up and helping to cover it up for Trump.
Attorney General Todd Blanche, who went and did that interview and got all of that out of it. So everything Vance suggested happened. It just was with Blanche and not Tucker Carlson. That's pretty incredible when we try to kind of look back to see how that Blanche meeting happened.
Look, and that suggestion, it was crazy to read and through that reporting. Look, I think the fact that the vice president is clearly been so engaged in directing what's going on at the White House, the messaging, what the strategy should be around the Epstein files is actually really significant. The fact that Susie Wiles has clearly been more involved in this cover-up in the way that the White House has rolled out the Epstein files, the directions being given to Bondi, to Patel, I think is pretty stunning. And so what it does for us is it really, for me, ensures that we have to fight to get all of these folks in front of the Oversight Committee. The vice president has a lot of questions to answer. Susie Wiles has questions to answer. Clearly, members of the FBI at every level have to provide us with more information. And look, the former AG Pam Bondi, when we had her in front of us for an interview not that long ago here within the last couple of weeks, she said she wasn't involved. She didn't know what was going on. That's also clearly not true. She was involved in some of these meetings, sometimes by telephone, and is also a central figure in this reporting.
Right, and I think everyone should be pounding the table wanting to get all the Epstein files and take out the redactions of everything except for the names of the victims. That, as we've all said from day one, shouldn't be an issue. I will note that the president, the White House put a statement out, which repeated Trump's claims that he did no wrongdoing, saying that he was innocent in all Epstein-related matters. So, of course, I will note that.
Good. I'm glad that he is, taking accountability and not trying to distance himself from these things still. That's great. Okay, we are going to get into Pam Bondi a little bit. So, I have the transcript. We're not going to read through that, but I want you to know that the 111 pages of transcript will be in my outline, okay? So it's 111 pages. What I did want to do real quick is Control F Blanche. There are 96 mentions of Todd Blanche. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because although Pam Bondi was the Attorney General and Todd Blanche was the Deputy Attorney General, she seemed to have a predilection to throwing him under the fucking bus, specifically saying that she directed and delegated a lot of these duties in regards to the Epstein files to him, which again, Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal defense attorney. So we're going to get into some of the representatives who spoke about Pam Bondi's, I call it testimony. Somebody in the chat is correct. It's not testimony because it was not under oath. But I guess you call it a questioning. So here is Walkinshaw on Bondi, specifically about, again, Trump. Everything they do is to cover up for Trump. She is asked about the extent of her knowledge, or about the extent of Trump's knowledge on what Epstein was doing. Pam Bondi could have said he had no knowledge of what Epstein was doing, but that's not how she answered.
I want to share one piece of information, one question that the former Attorney General did answer. She was asked specifically about Donald Trump, President Trump's awareness.
Zandan, you can call in about that. You said they just proved E. Jean Carroll was lying. Uninformed you are. Zandan, you can call in about that. The number's on the screen. Give me the factual information that they proved E. Jean Carroll was lying.
Of Epstein's crimes before they became public knowledge. She had the opportunity to say Donald Trump certainly wasn't aware of those crimes. She had the opportunity to say, I know Donald Trump, and if he was aware of those crimes, he would have done something. Instead, she said, I don't know. She also said, quote, this is a direct quote, I'm not certain of the extent of his knowledge. I think that's a perfect example as to why we need Pam Bondi under oath in a real deposition for the camera so the American people can see and hear her answers to our questions for themselves. I'll turn it over to the
I don't know the extent of his knowledge. Not that he doesn't have anything, but that I don't know. So here is Robert Garcia again on Pam Bondi.
In that interview, and what she's saying here in her words and remarks, is that it was Todd Blanche, the current acting AG, that was leading the Epstein investigation, and quite frankly, all of the mistakes that we saw, the redactions, not protecting survivors, she continues to push that back onto the acting AG, Todd Blanche, who, by the way, was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. I also personally asked the former AG 5 times and 5 different questions about her conversations with President Trump, whether he directed her at any given time on the Epstein files, what he knew, what he asked her to redact or not, and she refused to answer any questions about President Trump. In fact, she said that she would not speak or respond to any questions that had anything to do with President Trump. It's also...
Now, why would she do that? Why would she specifically choose to plead the fifth and not answer on questions in regards to Trump? Interesting. Here is Representatives, I always say his name wrong and I apologize, but Subranian, Representative Subranian, talking about, again, Pam Bondi, and apparently this idea that she's coming in as a private citizen as if she did everybody a favor and didn't actually have a subpoena to testify. So that's an interesting conversation. W's to Telroy for the $6.47. All this hard work exposing the Epstein facts. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support, Telroy. Thank you. That brings us down to an even 50, guys. So let's start dollar train, $2 training. We can get that done. I know you can. I've seen you do it with about 40 minutes left in the show. Let's start working on that, okay?
We were also talking about the fact that there's 2 DOJ officials in that room, despite the fact that Bondi is there.
Oh, by the way, that part. She's coming in as a private citizen, and yet she has 2 lawyers currently working in the Department of Justice with her to advise her on which questions to answer. Now, why would that be? Could she be giving incriminating testimony?
In her private citizen capacity. Are they saying very much? What is the role that they are playing in that room?
Generally, I believe they are there because she is there in her former official capacity and to answer questions about what she did in her official capacity at the DOJ. So that's her justification for sending attorneys that are paid with taxpayer money to defend her and the administration is because she's doing this in her official capacity. I have some issues with that.
So we paid for that because they're DOJ lawyers. So we paid for them to be there to advise her on which questions to answer. And as we saw from Garcia, she specifically refused to answer questions about Trump. And we paid for them to do that. You okay with that? That's where you want your tax dollars to go? Hi, Satan. Satan is here, and Satan is saying to get that goal done. Y'all better listen to Satan. You know what'll happen if you don't.
I also have some issues generally with the fact that she's tried to duck this interview to begin with, and she tried to come in a situation where she doesn't have to be sworn in. If she has nothing to hide, she should have been sworn in. If she has nothing to hide, she should be videotaped, and I don't know why she's refused those things.
We were also...
Donnie, no, because there were still active ongoing appeals and cases going on under the Biden administration. We know that. This one was a very telling answer. So, Howard Lutnick, we know, is implicated in the files, right? He is the Secretary of Commerce. He was implicated in the files so much that there was a picture of him at the island. He took his family to the island after he lied and said that after meeting his new neighbor Epstein, him and his wife decided that you will never be alone in a room with him again. But then apparently he took his entire family to the island, and there's also a picture of him there. They asked Pam Bondi about that picture and why it was taken down. So this is the picture we're talking about, okay? It was released initially in the files. Who's that? Oh, that's Jeffrey Epstein. Who's that? That is Howard Lutnick, the current U.S. Secretary of Commerce, on the island with Epstein. This was released on the DOJ's website with the release of the Epstein files and then subsequently removed. Okay? So Subramaniam asks why.
Pam Bondi, we asked her about, well, why was his picture in the Epstein files taken down? Remember, there was a picture of him on the island after he'd said he'd never been there, right? It got taken down for a couple of days and put back up. She said, oh, we thought it was AI, so that's why we took it down.
Do you accept that answer? Is that an acceptable answer? We thought it was AI, so we took it down. It's not. It's not an AI picture. It's a very real picture. But that's what Pam Bondi says. This is one of the lawyers for the DOJ lawyers that showed up that we paid for with Pam Bondi, being asked about why she would not let Bondi respond to questions about Trump and Epstein's connection. And she's very professional.
Response to people who say that your presence was a conflict for Ms. Bondi. What? What's your response to criticism that the presence of the department was a potential conflict for Ms. Bondi, given that her interests might diverge from the department?
That is silly. And
Did you advise her not to answer questions on particular topics?
I'm sorry?
Did you advise her not to answer questions on particular topics with the president?
Well, there.
I don't know why it keeps glitching.
The committee before we walked in there, and we simply wanted to stick to the temporal limitations as well as subject matter limitations.
But why did you tell her not to answer specific questions?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into my reasoning. That's, we represent the Department of Justice, and that's between us and the department.
Right, but Pam Bondi no longer works at the Department of Justice. So why are you there? Why are you there? You know who wasn't there? Republicans.
Do you know what makes me sick to my stomach?
Hmm.
Republicans are the ones, the dads toting their, don't touch my daughter type of shit, right? They're the ones who are like, I'm going to harm someone so bad if they harm my child. Now they're the people saying there are bigger problems than the Epstein files. Now they're the same people who voted for a man who harmed daughters like they could have had.
Maybe, allegedly.
Right.
Besides E. Jean Carroll, that one was true.
Oh, super chat, by the way.
1 second. Let me get to Gen X first. Gen X, W's to you for the 567. Thank you for the decimal points, Gen X. Why do you hate me? Because Satan told me to, and I'm pissed that my tax dollars went to defending Bondi. I am too. What the fuck am I paying for your cover-up now? That's great. We love that. W's again to Super Magnum. Holy crap. W's for the super chat. $50 super chat. W's to you. You said Pam is making Trump more guilty for MAGA and Republicans. That's absolutely true. The more that she doesn't speak, the more that they have her there, definitely the more guilty he looks. Matt from Boston, thank you so much for the jewels as well. I appreciate you so much for that. Thank you. So, the only Republican that showed up to Pam Bondi's hearing was James Comer, because he's the chairman. No other Republicans showed up.
Now, I also want to point out that there is not a single Republican in the room besides the chairman. For a supposed group of individuals who care deeply about justice for the survivors, not a single Republican could be bothered to travel across the country today to come hear testimony from the former Attorney General. Not one. They're not here. And they won't allow this interview to be put on video for the American people to see. And that means that only those of us who are allowed in the room can tell you what is actually happening. And what I can tell you is that when we started to ask difficult questions, Ms. Bondi got combative. The DOJ attorneys began rolling their eyes. They started intervening, and they tried to shut down any questions about the president and this administration's handling.
So again, if Republicans are on the same page that this should be investigated, if you guys are on the same page, how come your representatives don't show up? Interesting. This is survivor Maria Farmer. She made a statement. She's one of the first people to report Epstein to the FBI because not of what he did to her, even though he also abused her, but because of what he did to her sister. This is the Zorro Ranch. This is the New Mexico stuff. When I tell you that a lot of the crimes were not necessarily committed only on the island, I mean it. Maria Farmer was one of the first to go to the FBI and accuse Epstein of doing what he did. This is her response, her statement in response to Pam Bondi's interview. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi's continued evasion of questions about her grave mishandling of the release of the Epstein files was not surprising. It's a pattern of behavior. At every turn, Bondi has ignored and disregarded the will of Epstein survivors who have waited for justice for decades. And even now, as a private citizen, she refuses responsibility for her missteps and failures. While we welcome Congress's efforts to continue pushing all those involved in perpetrating our abuse for answers, we demand that they use every lever possible, every investigative tool available, and every resource necessary to ensure Bondi, other officials responsible for protecting survivors, and the government itself are held accountable for their longtime failures. We cannot afford to let the reputation management efforts or ongoing attempts to hide information further delay us from obtaining answers, accountability, and justice. I have waited for justice since I first came forward to the FBI in 1996. Enough is enough. Did the Biden admin have the files? The DOJ and the FBI might have had some files, but there was an issue, which is the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell's trial and appeals were still going on under the Biden administration. And because of Pam Bondi's insistence that she delegated so many duties to Todd Blanche, I'm going to show it. I'm not going to read most of it. But Robert Garcia wrote a letter to James Comer, the chairman of this oversight committee, that he now wants Todd Blanche to come in. Again, we would like the same things. We would like Todd Blanche to come in under oath with cameras so that we have that testimony. James Comer is most likely going to decide to do closed door if he calls Todd Blanche in at all. Now, we already have, I don't have the video on this outline, but it does exist. James Comer just did this a few days ago, where they asked him about the fact that Robert Garcia is asking for Todd Blanche to come in and testify now about Epstein. James Comer's response was, quote, "It's never enough for Robert Garcia." It shouldn't be, should it? It should never be enough to continue asking the government, the people in charge of the government right now, why they have not done anything. Todd Blanche keeps saying we are moving on. We're not moving on. It's not going away. We refuse. You guys can keep pretzeling yourself to defend the president, pedophile, sexual assaulter in chief. We're not going to do it. So, we have an example of where the lawyers interfered. So remember, one of the DOJ lawyers' name is Miss Dillon. Okay? So we're going to read some of that testimony. This is Bondi to start. I'm not going to discuss any conversations that I've had with the President of the United States. Question. It would be helpful for us to understand whether that's just a refusal to discuss it full stop or whether that's an invocation of some version of executive privilege. Bondi responds, privilege. Question. And can you or counsel elaborate a little bit on the nature of the privilege for record? DOJ Attorney Dillon. We're not going to get into conversations that the former Attorney General had with other senior members of the executive members of the White House and the immediate staff of the President. That's covered by privilege. Mr. Gunn says, I'll also add, we don't even need to formally assert the privilege in this context, given the voluntary nature of these proceedings. Mr. Gunn is the other DOJ attorney. So we're just going to refuse to provide answers about conversations with the president and his advisors. Redacted says, thank you. And as I think you just said, those are two different concepts. So just for clarity, one more time, is this just a voluntary refusal to answer or a formal assertion of executive privilege? DOJ Attorney Dillon, this is a voluntary interview and assertion of privilege is not legally required. And so just telling you what's out of bounds, you're not going to get answers on those issues. It's just a choice not to answer that question, correct? DOJ Attorney Dillon, I'm not testifying here, so I'd say... Redaction. I think you can go ahead and ask your next question. Well, we'll just clarify with the witness. Thank you. That's a great point. Question. That's just a choice on the witness's part to simply not answer questions in the category you describe, which is conversations with the president or his close advisors. Is that correct? Answer, and as I've said in the past on multiple range of topics. Question, but is that the case here today? Answer, yes. Question, yes? Sorry, I just need that last yes. Answer, yes. Thank you. It was her choice to not answer those questions. Oh, excuse me. And then most recently, Todd Blanche was in front of Congress asking about budget again. This is Dean, Representative Dean, who's going to try to ask him about the Epstein files while he is in front of said Congress. And the chairman tries to cut her off. Not Chairman Comer. This would be a different person on this committee, but it would be a Republican because they hold the majority. Tries to cut her off early on her time.
It's public. This time, and more importantly, it's under oath. You're speaking to Congress. So let's get into it. When will you comply with the law and release all of the files?
As I said to you when we spoke before, we have complied with the law. We have reviewed.
There are 3 million more documents, and you know what you said to me? They're all duplicative, and they include another guy named Epstein.
No, I didn't
Nobody's
say that.
buying. That's
I did
what you
not
said.
say that.
That's what you said.
So look,
reclaiming my
can
time.
I answer? Can I answer the question?
You may not. I just gave you the answer you gave me.
Telling.
No, actually, it's my time, Mr. Chairman. I think those are the rules of this committee. I told him the answer he gave me, and now in public he's trying to say something else. Please stop the clock. Can I get that time back? May I have 20 seconds back, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I very much appreciate that.
King Shit, you're on a wild pivot today. You said Swalwell and Plattner are proven sexual monsters. Dem supported them both 100%. They are everything but what they claim. Actually, Swalwell is not even a 100% proven sexual monster because he has not gone to court, right? So it's still allegations. However, on my platform, and I don't think I've seen any platform that defended him, we admonished him. So the day that those allegations came out, the morning those allegations came out, Eric Swalwell said he was stepping down from running for governor. I, on this show, reported it, and I remember what I said. Friends, do you remember what I said? I said, okay, not only does he need to step down from running from governorship, he needs to step down from Congress. Now, I am only on from 10 a.m. Mountain Time to 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Once I got off, a story came out that he then later stepped down from his congressional seat, that he would be stepping down from his job, which we all called for. So nobody defended Swalwell. That is untrue. Can you show me somebody who defended Swalwell when those came out? Now, Plattner also has some allegations of misconduct and pushing and shoving. Plattner has been very, very honest about the issues he had in way of adultery and infidelity in his marriage, and the accusations that he has from a right-wing supposedly former girlfriend is also something that he is dealing with. He shows remorse. I'm not going to defend him as being a good man. There's issues with that. But until you fix the fucking pedophiles and Nazis in your party, I don't want to hear about this one. Okay? Pete Hegseth, accused of rape. Donald Trump, adjudicated civilly for sexual assault, with 26 other allegations. His wife accused him of rape. I don't want to hear shit from you until you clean up your own backyard, as Bessent would say, or as Blanche would say. Clean up your own backyard first. Yeah, you did. I believe you did. Let me double check. I think I saw it. Hold on. Yes, that is you. Can I get huge fucking W's to Chuck? I'm going to assume that's you, so I'm going to say it like Chuck. Huge W's to Chuck for the 44-33, just because you're doing an amazing job, and I really appreciate it. W's to Chuck for knocking out the rest of the goal. Holy crap. That means Satan is going to be very happy with you, and we love that. So thank you so much. I appreciate your support. I want you to know I have seen you in the chat, so I've seen you supporting in the chat and with the taps, and I appreciate that, Chuck. So I appreciate you so much. Guys, W, thank you so much for completing out that goal today. Truly, truly. Okay, back to Dean, where they tried to cut her off of her time.
Mr. Blanche.
You don't want me to answer the question.
Mr. Blanche, as you know, I visited DOJ 3 times for as much as 10 hours, and I'll be going back.
What about Pete Hegseth's tattoo, king shit? Plattner got his covered, didn't he? Didn't he? The Dems electing alcoholic real Nazis. I'm glad you're talking about the Republicans being approval and supportive of Pete Hegseth. Yeah. Yeah.
Does Pete Hegseth not ring a bell? The man who promised before he was confirmed in office, hey, you know what? I promise I'm not going to drink on the fucking job.
Wasn't Pete Hegseth... What did Pete Hegseth switch to the Democratic Party? I didn't know. That's interesting.
I don't think he was.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
The Epstein File Transparency Act say that the file should be available to members of Congress with a minder at DOJ, where you're in a secure room. You can't write on any of the binders. You can take your own notes. Is that what the Transparency Act says?
It doesn't require we allow you to come to DOJ at all. We did that on our own.
What does it say in terms of transparency? It says that they should be made publicly available.
And they were.
Am I correct?
And
publicly
they were.
available.
And they were.
Oh, well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
I beg your pardon. And I'd actually like to get 20 seconds back. How do I get cut off 2 minutes into this?
2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Chairman. No, that's not right. What rules are we operating under? Because he's under a little bit of heat for not prosecuting anyone in these monstrous crimes? I've been in the room. I have been there. This is what I had to do, to transcribe, to show what is true. What is true is that the president has lied about being on Epstein's plane, and the unredacted files prove that. There's a lot in here. I am shocked at this. There's also this set of files in the file. This is investigation into the potential co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein. I almost used up all the blank ink in the hallway because it's all covered up. It's all covered up.
That is a document about accused co-conspirators with Jeffrey Epstein. Other people who either covered up for Epstein or also harmed children. Why was it completely blacked out? They weren't supposed to do that under the Epstein Transparency Act, were they? No.
The American people are not stupid. They know that when members of Congress have to go in and actually unredact to try to find the truth for these victims, something is corrupt. Something is corrosive.
And as we know now, Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal defense attorney, was in the room, in the Situation Room with people trying to mitigate the disaster they found themselves in. Okay, one more video, and then we will move on. I'll try to find a small section for us to get into before we end, okay? The one thing I have left is this 21-second video because yesterday Bill Gates went in to testify as well. Again, another closed-door hearing, not under oath, that we will get a transcript of later. Why the fuck are we doing this? I don't know. We could film Bill Gates. What's the problem with that? What we do know that is coming out, it wasn't Comer, it was a different Republican, because that was a budget committee, that wasn't a oversight committee for the files. Bill Gates is already coming out and claiming that Epstein tried to use the knowledge of his affairs against him. That's Bill Gates' claim. Now, you guys can take and arrest Bill Gates and put him under the goddamn jail. I don't care. But the point is, I'm just showing you this video to show you that we're not done here. I gave you a lot of information, almost the entire show taken up with this, and I will immediately start a brand new section as we wait for more testimony. I will get Leslie Groff for you guys. I will get Bill Gates for you guys. We're not letting this go. You guys need to hold him accountable for the fact he's been covering this up.
Glad to be here voluntarily to testify, to help with the committee's work. I'll start with an opening statement in the hearing room. I hope my testimony is helpful to the important work of the committee to find justice for the victims. Thank you.
That again, he's accused of being there. Go after him. Go get him. That man gave his wife a venereal disease because he was cheating on her. Okay. We're done with Epstein today. I'm going to find another portion for us to continue on, but like I do every time we do this heavy subject, we're going to let people know in the Discord that we're done. And not only that, everybody who's here, what I want you to do with me is I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose, and we're going to let it out through the mouth. Ready? In. Out. That is a lot. We're not going to pretend like it's not. It is a very heavy subject, and it is huge to know. Hal Rogers, thank you, Blue. It is a lot to understand that this administration has gone out of their way to cover this up. Okay. All right. So let me see where I want to go with this. Let's see what I can get into with this last little bit of Trump, and then we will get out of here. So Trump truthed this about Iran and Karg Island. Okay. Donald J. Trump. The United States will be hitting Iran, whose Navy, Air Force, radar, anti-aircraft, and all other forms of defense, together with most of its offensive capability, are gone. Again, the issue with saying that they are gone is the fact that they shot down, supposedly, allegedly. Iran has still not claimed it. As far as I've seen, Iran has still not claimed it, which is out of the ordinary, because Iran has no problem claiming the things that they do, which is why there's rumor and speculation about it. But if their anti-aircraft is gone, why were they allegedly able to shoot down an Apache helicopter? How could they do that if we've taken care of them? All right. Very hard tonight. So we continued to bomb them. At some point in the not too distant future, we will be taking Karg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of their oil and gas markets, much like we have with Venezuela, which is working out brilliantly for both Venezuela and the United States of America. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So again, we are colonizing and stealing resources from countries, and we are claiming that they are committing terrorism to a huge, imminent threat extent to be able to justify us doing so. It's all we're doing. He's openly admitting it to you. His plan is to try to steal their resources. That's it. This was Donald Trump speaking on Fox News this morning, talking about Iran, which is interesting because, again, we're going to listen to his words, and we're going to listen to his words very, very carefully. Ray, I must have made you so mad. What are you going to do about it, bitch? You must be really angry. So angry. That man wouldn't piss on you if he was on fire, but sure. Keep glazing his tape, babe.
Announcing you're going to hit them very hard tonight. What went into posting that?
Well, it's just one of those things. They have no defense. They can't do anything about it. The only thing they have is fake news. You know, they have the New York Times write stories like they're doing great, and they're not. They've been wiped out.
The New York Times doesn't write that they're doing great. What the New York Times did an article on is the fact that Donald Trump continues to say, we've taken out, as Kayla put it, we've taken out their entire military. According to Trump, he has repeated this over and over and over and over and over. In the New York Times, all they did was publish an article about the fact that these missile, I wouldn't call them silos, but they're missile locations. Of the 33 they had, 30 of them are still operational. And apparently that seems to be true because they just shot missiles at Israel over the weekend. If their military is destroyed, how do they keep completing these strikes? That's the point. They are not being fake news. They are telling you the truth that Donald Trump refuses to tell you, which you guys are very big on. I can see it with my eyes. Can you see the missiles flying across to Israel with your eyeballs? Then Iran's military is not wiped out.
CNN and that MS now.
Also that, Raina, if they have no defense, why is the strait not opened? Donald Trump keeps claiming we won. We won. Why are we still there?
Or whatever they call it nowadays. NBC had to get rid of it because it was bad for their reputation. But the publicity they have is incredible. It's almost like they're doing well, and they're getting decimated, and they're dying to make a deal. They want to make a deal so badly. But, you read the New York Times and you read the Wall Street.
Iran is dying to make a deal, except the last reporting that we got on Iran before they fired missiles at Israel is that the talks are done. Iran said, we are done talking.
I mean, his post this morning on True Social, basically saying we're hitting as hard as we can, we're going to hit as hard as possible, is the same, if not to the equivalence of him wanting to eliminate an entire civilization. But he's the president of peace. No
By the
new
way,
wars.
there's reporting we've already hit civilian infrastructure, which is a war crime.
So, like, again, you guys voted for a man who is doing active war crimes, and he's not going to face consequences. But you know who will? Our service members, their families.
Well, and DJ Bookie brings that point up. If Trump fools around to take Carg Island, there's going to be serious U.S. casualties. Because taking it, what does that mean? Taking it means boots on the ground. Keeping it means keeping boots and a base on the ground in a place that we said we never wanted to be. He campaigned on getting us out of the Middle East and not being there. But he's just putting our people in jeopardy. He doesn't care about that. Again, because he brings up casualty lists from other wars to make it seem better that we only lost 13. And I quote, I get a kick when the news talks about the 13. That's what Donald Trump said. We played it here for you.
Street Journal, which is so fake. I mean, I know you guys own it, but it's a real piece of garbage. And you read the Wall Street Journal, it's like they did an editorial today about we're not hitting them hard enough. I mean, it's just not hitting them hard enough. We dropped $250 million worth of bombs on them last night. You know, the whole thing is crazy. But and they're really in submission. They just don't know it yet.
They are in submission. They just don't know it yet. That's an oxymoron. Ohio, really? I was wondering. So I have, as we all know, I was wondering, because gas prices were sitting at $90 per barrel for crude, regular crude, not Brent. Okay, let me show you guys. I have my little chart that I always have. I just don't always have it up. Where are you? There you are. Crude. Okay. Let me do this for Twitch real quick. So I have that I always have. It was at like 90 when I started today. I keep track of it every so often I look. It's at 87. I wondered why. Ohio Fry, thank you so much for that information, is saying that Trump says he's canceling the strikes for tonight.
He just tacoed. CNBC says President Donald Trump on Thursday canceled the U.S. military's latest round of strikes against Iran, claiming discussions and final points have been, in both concept and great detail, approved by all parties involved.
Sure. Market manipulation. Again, it's just market manipulation. That's all that this is. So again, Donald Trump's words, they're in submission. They just don't know it.
In submission. They just don't know it yet. Okay, to be honest with you. They just don't know it yet.
If they don't know it, then they're not in submission, and they're still fighting us. As Peabody pointed out, by the way, thank you so much, Peabody, there is reporting from CNBC that Iran will consider all of Elon Musk's companies in the Middle East, including SpaceX's Starlink internet service, as military targets as it retaliates against the U.S. Iranian state media outlet Fars reported Thursday.
I hope they fucking do.
We love that for him.
I genuinely hope that they fucking do, because, like, at this point, it's ridiculous.
We love that for him. Love that for Elon. Okay, so let's go down to here. I'm going to try and play this. I don't know that TikTok will like it, but we're going to try. Guys, we're almost at 200,000 likes. Do your thing. Again, same Fox News interview. Donald Trump is they're trying to ask him about Iran. They're trying to ask him about it. And of course he pivots because he can't stay on subject.
What you do is you came to power because you said America wants to win, and you win. Even in 2020, more votes than anyone in the history of the Republican Party. So
Well, yeah, because there were just more votes in the history of voting in this country. By the way, this is Brian Kilmeade. If you don't remember Brian Kilmeade is the one who talked about homeless people and said that if they do not want to get help, we should just shuttle them up and euthanize them. Yes, he did say that. Still has his job. Never apologized.
you look at this. This seems to be like an anaconda. You're saying laying the groundwork and just subtly squeezing them more and more and more.
Listen, happy Pride. Why are conservative men so gay? Just come out, baby. Like, it's our month. We have so much fun.
Like an anaconda. You're saying laying the groundwork and just subtly squeezing them more and more and more into.
My anaconda don't. My anaconda don't. My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun.
They have no options. One of the hits yesterday, as our audience probably knows, is on a water facility. They were already running out of water. So if you can continue...
Because that's a war crime. That's a war crime. What's that for, Eli? Don't do that. I don't like it when you do that.
...continue to blockade, and now you're taking down their eyes and ears. You're letting them know you're not playing games. And the rhetoric that's been coming out of them for the last 8 weeks really looks hollow today.
Well, Brian, if you can hear me, I think you can.
Yep.
I will say that, first of all, you mentioned 2020. You're right, in 2020, I got more votes than anybody in history, Republican Party. And
okay. He fixed it, because that's not what he said, right? He didn't say more votes than anybody in history. He said in the Republican Party.
I got more votes, but the election was rigged. But in 2024, I really got more. We made it too big to rig. And but we did great in 2020. It was a rigged election. And you saw...
I just want to believe the things that I say. Why don't you just let me believe the things that I say?
Again, no proof.
But in California, very interesting, if I could just divert. So the kid got, the shaft. And he did Spencer Pratt. He did really,
He didn't even know his name.
Pretty damn well. And they threw him out. And it was happening to Steve Hilton. And I went on
It wasn't, actually. It was not happening to Steve Hilton. So Steve Hilton was actually in the lead of Javier Becerra for most of the last, the couple days, the night of the election and the next day. Steve Hilton was in the lead of Javier Becerra, but we know that happens because they count in-person votes first. A lot of that tends to be Republican leading, and that's what we call a red mirage. That's why they call it a red mirage, because those votes get counted first. The mail-in ballots get counted after the fact, and Democrats are more likely to count by mail. Steve Hilton, again, yesterday, by the way, is moving on to run against Javier Becerra in November for the governorship of California, and he was in second place that entire time. Becerra eventually took those votes over, but Steve Hilton was second, and Steve Hilton doesn't even share these sentiments. So
on a tear. And they said it was going to be 2 weeks, and they'll know about Hilton, whether or not he's going to make it. I went on such a tear that they approved it immediately. They approved Steve.
That's not what happened. He just reached the threshold. It had nothing to do with Donald Trump. He just reached the threshold that nobody else was going to be able to catch up, even as votes are still being counted. Guess what? They finished counting. They still do that. They just officially projected him to go on to November.
It's such a rigged deal. It's so crazy.
Douglas, what is ballot harvesting? What does that mean? Can you describe ballot harvesting to me?
They approved him so fast because everybody was watching, and he was leading, and it was leading by a lot, and you saw his lead was.
But again, remember what the question was? What were we talking about? What were we talking about? Oh, Iran. Okay.
Dissipating rapidly. Yeah. They were taking it away from him, just like they took it away from the kid. And I went on a tear. And by the way, we have the U.S. attorneys looking at it. And the 2 weeks said all of a sudden, we have a surprise. Steve Hilton won. And he did win. But they were going to take it away shortly. They were going to take it away over a 2-week period.
No, they weren't. Tom Steyer was nowhere near being able to catch up to Steve Hilton. Nobody was going to do that. There was no way for those votes to come in, and we all knew that. We knew that Hilton was going to November. They just hadn't officially projected it yet. He hit the threshold. It was officially projected. They're still going to finish counting the votes.
They announced that they wouldn't.
2 weeks. 2 weeks!
Have the results for a week to 2 weeks. All of a sudden, they approved Steve Hilton.
But Iran.
It's a rigged election.
Oh, but Iran. There it goes. I knew every time. Every fucking time, TikTok. Every time. Okay, hold on. Let me go put in my appeal. Every fucking time. It's not my words. This should give you a clue, by the way, YouTube and Twitch. This should give you a clue. Hold on. Let me go to my live chat real quick. Every single time. This should give you a clue, YouTube and Twitch, that I'm merely playing. I'm talking to MAGA. All I am doing is playing the president's words. It's the president's words that you believe. And yet here we are. Okay, let me put in this appeal. That's fine. I don't need policy training. Leave me alone. Oh, you're not going to give me the option? You might not. Let's see what the content violation was. Oh, no, there's my appeal button. Okay. Thank you for calling the stream. Can I get your age, state, and who you voted for?
It's work wife. I just wanted to say we got matching violation.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is the fact that it's Donald Trump. I'm playing his words.
And it was a matter of time until his actual videos got us taken down.
What does that tell you, MAGA? What does that tell you? Huh?
That he's not smart. Okay, I go comments. Love you.
Love you. All right, I submitted an appeal. It didn't give me the opportunity to put in a message like it did last time, which means I probably will not get approved, which is okay. I will try to go live on my backup, but I have to go live on my backup on TikTok Studio to be able to do that first. But if not, we'll still be on Twitch and YouTube. So we're going to finish this over here on Twitch and YouTube because I guess you can listen to your man live.
Yeah. But just I shouldn't have brought that up. But how do you feel about it?
But let's get back. Get back. I just want to say to the public, it's a rigged election. We need the Save America Act. Period.
Got it.
Okay, let's get back to Iran. Much simpler. This is a much simpler situation.
But he didn't get back to Iran. It's a much simpler situation. Sure. Yeah, if you want to call it that. Okay. What else did I have? Oh, this one would have got me taken down too. This was Donald Trump in the Oval Office, again, talking about rigged elections and saying that we have the evidence. Where's the evidence? We're waiting. We're waiting for the evidence. You guys refuse to give it.
They rigged the election, the second election, as you probably hear and probably know. Most of you know that happened, and now it's been proven. And it will be proven as time goes by even more so. We have things that you won't believe. When we release the full files, you're not going to believe how crooked the second 2020 election was. But they rigged the election, the second.
Where's the proof? Butt dial. Where's the proof? Where is it? Can you tell me? No? None of you? That's what I thought. No? Okay. But you guys just listen to Donald Trump. He's not given you proof. 6 years later. 6 motherfucking years later. Thank you so much, Mazzaro. I appreciate you for the jewels. You guys got nothing. Jeff, what issues did Georgia have in 2020? What issues did Georgia have? I knew it. I knew you fucking did it. Eli. Why are conservative men so gay? My anaconda don't. I'm waiting, Jeff. This is why I'm here still. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the issues in Georgia, Jeff. Thank you, Mazzaro. No. Ooh, gross. I did the text, not the highlight. Ew. Wasn't Georgia the state that had discrepancies like the same state that gave us MTG voted for Biden? That was Georgia. Georgia swings blue sometimes, Jeff. There was not. The discrepancy you're talking about in Georgia, Jeff, is what they talk about, the 300,000 votes. There were 300,000 ballots. When they are taken into a chain of custody by an election official, there needs to be a receipt signed with their name. The election official forgot and did not write their name on said receipt. Now, when the election was audited, when Georgia was audited, they went back to those 300,000 ballots, they recounted them, They certified all of those ballots as being legitimate, and the election official who did signed their name on the receipt because that was the piece that was missing. There was nothing wrong with the ballots. The election official fucked up their job. Now, that election official should have been fired, probably should never work in elections again. But that is what happened, Jeff. And that's not fraud. They fucked up, but that's not fraud. So, try again. All right, I think I had a funny for us today before we get out of here. Let me go see if I can find it. Guys, when you get back over to TikTok, if you would go watch my latest video and like it, watch it all the way through, share it, I would appreciate it so very much if you would do that. As of right now, I do not get my account access back until June 14th on my main account. We'll see if the appeal goes through. If it does not, I'm going to try to figure out my backup account. If not, I will be over here on Twitch and YouTube, okay? Let me play this, because this cracked me up, because this is you guys, for sure. This is you. There's MAGA.
Jan's got spirit. Yes, he do. Jan's got spirit. How about you? Dude, you just lost.
Donald Trump is doing nothing to benefit you or the American people, but that is where you are going to sit and stay. So that's all you have. All right, so let's see. No? Okay. Think probably not. Probably because we stayed up so late last night, which is fine. All right, so I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate those of you who transferred over and ran over here to Twitch and YouTube once my TikTok got taken down. I appreciate it. I fucking knew. In my head, I knew. I was like, Donald Trump's going to say some shit, and it's going to be enough. It is going to be enough. So thank you. I will be back tomorrow. Okay, YouTube and Twitch for sure. I'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, whatever time that is for you. We'll figure out TikTok. If not, oh well. Guys, make sure you are joining my Discord, okay? Linktree is in my bio. There you have the link to the Discord. If you click it and you have an issue with it, you can paste it into a browser, and you can join that way. If you are MAGA trying to join, we do have a probationary role, but if you are hateful MAGA that we recognize from the chat, you will not be allowed in. If you are open-minded and would like to have conversations, you might be allowed in. It's going to be dependent on us in our decisions. Jeff, the problem is that you play like you are listening, you play like you are taking in information, and then you veer back every single time. It gets very exhausting. It gets very exhausting. All right. Well, no MAGA. Look, I have a probationary rule for a reason, but it's not necessarily for MAGA. On that note, guys, I appreciate you. I might have to try and do this live on my backup account thing, see how that goes. If not, we'll figure it out. We always do. This is why everybody is moving away from TikTok, just so they know. I appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you for completing the goal. Thank you for getting the likes. We were so close. I don't know that you guys hit 200,000, but we were very, very close before we got taken down. I love you all so very much. I will see you tomorrow, Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, at the very least on YouTube and Twitch. So make sure you are following or subscribed over here so that you can get the notifications for that when I go live. And I will see you guys tomorrow.